morning to all the wonderful people. If you're here on a Sunday, that means that you truly value your health. Okay, so that is what makes you special, and then it inspires us to conduct sessions like these. Uh, staying away from family and definitely spending our Sunday. So, if you're wondering who we are and what we do, so we are the team of the MediFit Clinic. The MediFit Clinic is a signature metabolic health clinic. Now, if you're wondering what metabolic health is about, okay, so you will soon find out in the upcoming series of lectures. Okay, so now we pioneer the concept of treatment, reversal, and prevention of metabolic disorders. Okay, so now all medical disorders have some underlying metabolic issue. So now once we fix that, okay, your medical issues get sorted. Now what we do is we treat, prevent, and reverse medical conditions with nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle as medicine. So, hopefully, someday we will be able to address all the medical disorders and help you be medically fit. Now, this is MediFit Live, and it is an educational initiative by us to spread uh, a lot of myths. Bust a lot of myths. And there's a lot of misinformation that we would like to help you, unlearn and relearn a lot of good things. So, having said that, so we have Dr. Jeethan Bendur today. And Dr. Jeethan Bendur is only 58 years old. So he is the youngest of the speakers that we can actually get. So Dr. Jeethan is a lateral thinker and a metabolic health practitioner. Now he brings to us a lot of experience from his work in the pharmaceutical industry, and then he is only into metabolic health. Now, he spent a good deal of time in Hong Kong, and he is currently in Mumbai, and he practices there. So, if you're wondering who I am, so my name is Dr. Bharath, and I am the founder and medical director of the MediFit Clinic. So, if you ask me, my highest level of achievement is I have been the team doctor of the Indian boxing team, and I am a very staunch advocate of nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle as medicine. So that is the reason why MediFit was born. Now, we'll keep this session completely informal. So we will take short breaks of us talking, and then we will take questions in between. And we will begin by talking a bit about the topic today, which is why am I gaining weight? Now, most of us gain weight and then we really don't know the reason why. So we'll begin with talking about understanding the concept of obesity first. So I'll open the thing to Dr. Jeethan. Dr. Jeethan, so what do you think is the lack in basic understanding about obesity in your experience?
Good morning, Doc. Thank you for the introduction, and good morning, viewers from Bangalore and beyond. I look forward to this talk, and I hope we can get everything that Dr. Bharath Kumar has set out to get this thing on. Can you hear me well, Dr. Bharath?
Yeah, very well.
Okay. I think obesity is just been on the books for everybody throughout a couple of decades now, and it's been center in our lives, and it's been spoken about all the time at any meeting, any parties, any friends that you meet. You can't get out of that conversation. But I think the challenge really is that we look at obesity as something that can be fixed overnight, because it takes time to be obese. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't wake up one day obese. It takes time to get there, and to undo that also takes time. So it might actually make sense for us to change a lot of things which we'll be talking about when it comes to obesity, because it's a central point of conversation, and it is causing a lot of metabolic and health problems that we shouldn't be facing at this time, because we know quite a bit about obesity when compared to, say, about 20 years back or 30 years back, Doc.
Right. So to add to that, now first thing I feel that is lacking is, now obesity is looked upon mostly like cosmetic problem. Oh, I have love handles and I have put on weight. My dresses don't fit, and then what people do is, okay, they just run to the gym and then they begin the fitness program, and that is what exactly they do. And then they read up online, and they start doing some crash diets, so which is not only impairing your health but also putting you at risk of major metabolic disorders, I mean, like heart disease and stroke and crippling diseases like osteoarthritis because of micronutrient deficiencies. So first point we want to drive is that obesity is not a cosmetic problem, it is a metabolic disorder. It needs to be treated by a trained metabolic health specialist. That is the first point that needs to be noted. So before you decide on running to the gym or getting a nutrition consultation, first thing that you need to do is see a doctor, get your metabolic health screening done, and find out what is your current status of health and where you are lacking before we intervene. It is always a targeted intervention, because your cause of being overweight and other any others cause of being overweight may not be the same, right, doc?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's very important to go and check out what the challenge is. And as I mentioned some time back, it doesn't happen overnight. There are so many elements to obesity. And when we talk about obesity, again, Doc, we're talking about most people worried about fat, but there is more to obesity than just fat, because we are so fat centric, unfat, too much fat. It's about, so everyone thinks that to not have fat that shows is actually being metabolically healthy. It's not necessarily true. And I think we should be very clear that fat is something that we need, but not in excess. That we totally agree, and I think we will agree on pretty much every participant here will. And yes, getting a metabolic profiling done from a medical practitioner makes a lot of sense. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, the other thing is that most people think that I'm overeating, and that is the reason I'm fat, which is actually not true. If I mean, over the past 1 decade of experience, and then I'm sure your 30-40 years of experience, so it says most obese people do not actually eat well, they undereat. So it is not really a condition of overnutrition, it is actually a condition of undernutrition or malnutrition, isn't it?
Absolutely,
if
absolutely, doc.
if we test their blood, okay, most of the time they are deficient in something, but they are having excess energy. Now fat is nothing but excess energy. Now why is it being stored? Now one thing we don't realize is, when we are hungry, the body is asking us for nutrients and not energy. So what we do, we simply eat energy, and it just getting stored, and then the body asks for more because it actually needs the nutrients, isn't it?
Hmm. Absolutely, Doc. Absolutely, and I think the whole outlook on fat needs to change as well. And I posted something sometime back saying that fat has kept us alive as a species, which is really true. Because if we didn't have fat, we would survive. It's an energy source that is required, but it's also nutrients that we need as well, because we need to balance both. And if you don't get that right and the balance right, as you said, it is malnutrition. It is nothing more than malnutrition. So getting that food content right, eating is not necessarily just getting what you get at hand and what you can buy and shovel it down your throat, and that happens a lot of times. I think it has to be given a serious thought, because we and I'm not talking about me as a 58-year-old. I'm looking at children. We are not sending the right message to our children and the younger generation, and that is going to bite us so badly in a couple of years, Doc. That is seriously a problem.
Yeah, one of the things that I mentioned to my patient is, look, your weighing scale is entirely not correct. It is not giving you the complete picture. isn't it? I mean,
Absolutely.
I would like you to throw some light on how people who are having normal weight and normal body mass index, BMI in short, what we call it. I mean, people with normal BMI can also be obese. Isn't that
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Absolutely. You're spot on, Doc. Because if you look at weight, weight belongs to different compartments. It's not just fat, you see. So one has to really look at not the top level of fat, because if you're looking only at fat, you're only looking at the tip of the iceberg. And that's not the way to do it. You have to know where that fat belongs, or sorry, where that weight belongs. So not looking at just the fat and weight, or just weight. So you need to see where that weight belongs, and you need to see how much of that weight belongs to the fat compartment, for example, how much of it belongs to the weight belongs to muscle, and a little bit in water. So these are dynamic compartments which keep shifting, which makes weight management a challenge. You see, so it makes absolute sense, like you mentioned. Just looking at the weight is not going to give you the answer or solution to the real challenge. It's only going to increase your headache, because if you just look at weight and go into diets that are just going to reduce your weight without getting into where the real challenges are, then you're going to be in trouble. Because if I may, if you go into something like a hypocalorie diet, which most people do, there's a calorie in and a calorie out theory, which is very prevalent and sold like crazy. It does. I'm not saying that if you cut down your calories like crazy, you're not going to lose weight. You are initially, but you're going to be in trouble soon, because you can hear about people going to centers, losing a lot of weight, and very happy with it, come back to the regular lifestyle, and then start putting on weight, and then put on more weight than before. And that is a problem, because if you don't know where your weight belongs, you cannot adjust your proper weight balance. And you being a sports medicine specialist, I'm sure you'll appreciate the fact that we need to make sure that the muscle compartment is up and running. And so the target should be the fat compartment. So it should be targeted weight loss. Doc, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we always stress on body composition analysis. In fact,
Yes.
in all our programs, we give away a machine which is a low-cost body composition machine, which actually tells us a lot of information. As in not just the weight, it also tells us what is the amount of subcutaneous fat, I mean, the fat under your skin, what is the amount of fat that is present inside their organs, which is what we call as the visceral fat, and what is the amount of muscle that they have, and what is their metabolic age, which means now the body chronologically might be some age. For example, I am 38 years old today, so now my body might be much older because of the excess amount of fat and the low amount of skeletal muscle that I have, isn't it? So the metabolic
Absolutely.
age is far more important than your chronological age.
Yes,
So
absolutely. Because
measuring
that's
your
what.
body composition becomes a vital part of the weight loss journey. I mean, so if you simply have a weighing scale, just throw it out and then get a body composition scale. That is the first thing that you can do to yourself.
Absolutely, Doc. Absolutely, and also that you also mentioned visceral fat, and that is pretty much the dangerous fat if you really look at the challenges that we have. And so we South Asians, that includes pretty much everybody in this subcontinent, have something called a central obesity, which is a huge problem that we don't really understand, not don't really look into. And as South Asians, we have something called as TOFI, TOFI, which is thin on the outside and fat on the inside. And that has to be taken very seriously by everybody. Because if you look at generally a side profile of most of us, you can see the chest and then a bump in the center, pretty much center obesity. And that has become okay. If you look at images of people, uh, pretty much everybody, you walk on the street, central obesity is rampant, and you might not actually see it in many people, and they may look fit. So to look at someone and say, okay, he's thin, and so he should be fine, is actually incorrect, because you really need to know how much the visceral fat is, because that is a very endocrinologically active, hormonally active fat.
Yeah. So a few things let's add up here. So one thing I would like to highlight is the importance of gut health in obesity. Now, most of us, we eat a lot of things and it goes through our system, the digestive system, which starts from our mouth and it goes all the way down to our intestines and the defecation system. Now, whatever we eat has to be digested and absorbed, and it has to enter the system. But if the gut health is poor, you might eat the best of foods, but it simply does not enter our system, and then we still become deficient of the vital nutrients. And the major cause here would be an overdevelopment of the pathogenic bacteria, which means, I mean, the gut bacteria has the good and the bad bacteria, while the good ones don't thrive well because of the food choices that we make. The bad ones thrive and then they cause disease.
Absolutely, absolutely, Doc. I mean, gut flora, it's an organ on its own, probably one of the largest organs that we have. Literally sets the tone for cravings to weight challenges to anything. So every time I get a call about, or I think about, my favorite ice cream, it is not necessarily my brain telling me that, it's my gut flora telling me that. Because if you look at it very simply, if you are on a very high carbohydrate, refined carb diet or a sugary diet, you are going to grow a bacterial strain or strains or an entire population that are very happy and are very, very populous in your gut. So they will overwhelm most of the other smaller populations of bacteria, which may actually be good for your health, right? So these are overwhelming bacteria that will always make sure that they are happy, because they are there to survive. So they will keep sending chemokines, messages to your brain saying, you know what, you remember that ice cream ad you saw the other day? How about going and picking one up? And you will do it, because you think your brain is doing it, but it's not. It's your gut flora most of the times, and that is really important to understand. And that is one of the central things that we need to fix. Fix your gut first before you even try anything else. And your medical practitioner, if not another practitioner, may be able to help you with that, because gut flora is supreme. Absolutely, Doc.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would like you to, I mean, since you spoke about the carbohydrate model of obesity, I would really like you to throw some light on why the caloric deficit model, which is widely used in the treatment of obesity. I mean, since you also mentioned about the hypocaloric diets,
Right.
I mean, from the evidence, it does not support that the hypocaloric diet works. While we need to, we can have an isocaloric. I mean, we can, let's say somebody has 2000 caloric diet, we can still keep the calories at 2000, but just change the proportion of the macros and then still experience weight loss without having a caloric deficit. Can you throw some light on?
Certainly, Doc. The challenges are the three macronutrients. Luckily, we only have three macronutrients. I mean, if it is micronutrients, would have been all over the place. That is why micronutrients is just a totally different subject, as important as your macronutrients. But when it comes to macronutrients, we generally focus a lot on fat, unfortunately. Not on carbohydrates, unfortunately. And then we give a little bit of importance to protein, and pretty much not much importance to fat. And I think that's one of our downfalls. Now, if you look at calorie, we're looking at an energy requirement, say, for the body, in one way of putting it, right, Doc? So if you're trying to keep a calorie of about, calorie intake of about 2000 kilocalories, and if most of that calorie requirement is coming from carbohydrates, you're going to be in trouble, because that carbohydrate. So if you look at someone's food and they say 60% carbs, 20% protein, and maybe 20% fat, or 70% carbs, 20 or whatever, 10, right? You're making 100% of your calorie input. But if you're taking that much carbohydrates, that is going to really come and bite you somewhere, because that carbohydrate intake that we're talking about is typically very unhealthy for a long period of time. Short period of time, we can totally debate that, right? But this calorie, so you need to know where your calorie is coming from, in other words. And knowing where your calorie is coming from is key to even maintaining your weight once you achieve that weight. So that is for you all to understand and for you all to find out. So it's not about, let me give a simple example. We don't eat enough protein. And Dr. Bharath will totally agree with me. He's a sports physician. And the central character that I also focus on is muscle, skeletal muscle. And muscle doesn't happen overnight. And muscle needs, generally speaking, two important aspects. One is protein, the food that it needs, and second one is the exercise to keep that muscle going. Of course, you need the neuronal connections and everything else. That is definitely, that goes unsaid. But these are the things that we need to understand. And keeping the skeletal muscle up and running is so important. And so getting that protein content is important. Getting fat into your food habits as a source of energy, as in calories, is very important, because we need to cut down our carbohydrates. So doc, that people say, "Arey, I've cut down my carbs and I'm still keeping my protein and my fat the same." And that doesn't happen. It doesn't actually make sense, because if you're looking at 100% of your food intake and calories, if you cut down your carbs, you're not 100%. You need to fill that gap in with something else, and that has to be protein and fat. And we're talking about good quality fat. I'm not talking about rubbish quality fat, doc. And you know what I mean. I'm talking about the most commonly accessed fats that we have are ghee, butter, coconut oil, and olive oil. And of course, animal fats, if you're a non-vegetarian, which has gone out of fashion, unfortunately. And so keeping that fat intake as a calorie input is very important. Cutting down your carbs in that caloric, understanding of your food intake is very important. And again, in your carbohydrates, we need to break it down into certain foods that are really going to hurt you, and that is the sugary food.
Yeah.
So calorie-wise, the sugary food sounds good, but that doesn't make sense. I remember someone talking about a couple of years back, before this whole hypocalorie diet kind of fell off the table and people started thinking out of the box, when someone had actually made a chart saying that you can eat M&Ms and make up your calories, right? That's it. If you need 2,000 calories, have an M&Ms, have sugar, 2,000 calories. But it doesn't work that way, because you're going to be in serious trouble. Serious trouble. Right now.
So I usually give an example of 3 fingers. Now I always, this finger is your carbohydrates, which is 50% of your total calories, and the second finger, the ring finger, is the fats, and then these are the proteins. Now, if let's say somebody is constructing a diet and then they decide to cut down on 25% of your calories, right? Now, the sad part is that the moment they cut down, they have to cut it down equally, right? I mean, that is what they are doing. But what needs to be done is you just need to drop your carbs. Okay, so keep your fats and your proteins intact. Okay, it is only going to give you a good source of fat soluble vitamins and the vitality of protein. Okay, you don't need that extra energy from carbs, which are unnecessary, isn't it? So don't cut down your calories, cut down your carbs. So that is the message that we're going to give you now in a while. Yeah. So so let's take some questions so that our participants don't sleep off. So if anyone has any questions at this moment about the understanding part of the obesity, we'll take it up. So please leave your questions in the chat.
So doc, out of curiosity, so all your people that you manage get a BCA analysis scale?
Yes.
Like when the questions are coming in, we can talk about that. That'll be fair. I think that is very central for people to understand, and that's a long-term plan that people can follow, because once they have the scale, then they can use the scale for a long time. Because I mean, I would love people to stick to my food plans and pay me forever, but I don't think that is ethical, and we're not that. We don't want people. We want people to get better and leave the fold, but continue the same, and using a scale as a a device that can give them a lot of guidance along with the metabolic parameters with the doctors.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we ask them to step on the scale at 7 a.m. every Sunday, and then we also ask them to measure their waist and hip circumference. And it is a completely data-driven program. As in,
Mm.
unless we know what is their lean body mass,
Mm.
how are we going to decide what is their portion of protein? Isn't it? Let's say
Right.
somebody is 100 kgs and has 50% fat, and somebody who is 100 kgs and 6% fat, both should not get the same amount of protein, isn't it? That
Yes,
doesn't make
absolutely.
logically any sense.
Right.
And going by our older formulas used for total energy expenditure, like Harris Benedict equation. So what that does is it does not regard the lean body mass at all, isn't it?
Mm.
So it gives you one number which is same for both, irrespective of gender, age, or body fat percentage,
Right.
which
Right.
is insane.
It is. It is pretty much the same as your RDAs, doc. It is, and I mean RDA when it comes to micronutrients is, I think, a joke. It's nice to have guidelines. I don't think it. I think it should be available and prevalent, but
Right.
people have to understand that RDA is not necessarily the same for everybody. It is basically a standard that is used to maybe a 70 kg person, if I'm not wrong, needs so much of a micronutrient, for example, just when to keep you healthy, to keep you probably just getting a little healthy. There is nothing beyond that, and so that is important to understand. Yes, absolutely.
Right. So we've just had one question. So what portion of carbs, protein, and fat should one consume? So we'll answer the specific questions about nutrition in the sector of nutrition. So we'll come to that. Okay. So we were just trying to understand. I mean, help you take questions about our understanding of obesity. Now, let me just finish up the this particular section by saying, look, insulin resistance is the root cause of obesity and many other problems. Now, when we say many other problems, obesity, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and polycystic ovaries, fatty liver, these are all brothers and sisters. So, like you have buy one, get one free offer. Okay, so you start with one, and you may start with a high blood pressure, but then someday you are going to get diabetes, someday you are going to get obesity. So, it is very important to address the root cause so that you are not at risk for many other conditions, right? So
Absolutely, absolutely, doc.
so someone is asking, losing weight is half done, how to maintain the ideal weight for longer durations? So do you want to take that question?
Sure, doc. Well, congratulations if you have got your weight target. But as Doc mentioned, to maintain weight, you need to maintain one important organ, and that is skeletal muscle, typically speaking. Because if you don't maintain, and it's not easy to maintain skeletal muscle, Doc, I'm sure Doc will agree with me on that. If you try and go and ask any person who's body sculpting, for example, or bodybuilding, and ask them how easy is it to keep muscle going, they'll probably cry on your shoulder and tell you it's really tough. Okay,
I've
so
been trying from 20 years.
right, doc. Right, doc. But so keeping muscle up and active and the muscle compartment up and active is pretty much central to keeping and maintaining your weight. And congratulations if you have reached your weight. But I think it's important to understand where your weight belongs to. Like Doc was talking about a body composition analysis, which is very central to my practice as well. Get a body composition analysis apparatus, very easily available. Or ask doc which one you can select, which one he suggests, because the software that comes with it also is very useful to see where your compartments go and which direction they belong and where are they moving. Once you get that, keep your skeletal muscle up and running. That will be central, which means that you got to get your protein and your exercise right. Okay, this is, you're looking at only the tip of what we are talking about, that skeletal muscle as a manifestation. And of course, as Doc mentioned, the elephant in the room is insulin resistance. So if you don't get your insulin resistance under control, you are in deep trouble. And I'm very much into aging, so into anti-aging rather, and that is pretty much very central to my practice as well. And the reason why I went into nutrition is because if you don't get nutrition right, you don't age right. It's a simple thing.
I think that is what binds you and me together. As in, I mean, both of us are doctors who have read modern medicine, but we hardly prescribe any medicine, isn't it? So
Yes,
what we
yes.
focus is nutrition, exercise, and lifestyle as medicine. So that is what is giving us that boost in the days to come. So just to add up on what you already mentioned, so to maintain weight, first thing that needs to change is your mindset. If you look at any program as a quick fix or something that you can do for 3 months and 6 months and then switch back to your old lifestyle, okay, then it is a complete sure shot failure. So you will have to the reason why the programs are at least 3 months to 12 months, 6 months, is that it is a slow, steady, and a sustainable change where you unlearn few things and relearn few things, and which you need to sustain it for the rest of your life. Whatever you learn, you need to sustain it for the rest of your life, and it is not a quick fix. So if you have followed whatever we have taught in the programs, and then I'm sure you will never gain your weight back. So moving on to the next question. So I don't know what causes PCOS. Would they need a customized diet and exercise guidelines? I'm interested in the level of gut flora, and then cravings are from them or hormonal imbalances. Okay, so can you start with that?
Sure, Doc. So what causes PCOS? Doc just mentioned the elephant in the room, insulin resistance. That is the underlying cause of PCOS. So basically speaking, if you have an imbalance in the type of foods that you eat, very carb heavy food, and especially sugars, uh, you will have a challenge with something called as insulin. Now, don't get insulin wrong. Insulin is a hormone like fat which has kept us alive as a species. No insulin, no life. Simple as that. But the thing is, you can't abuse both. We have abused both insulin and fat. And that's why we have these consequences of metabolic challenges. So getting that insulin under control and keeping insulin happy, of course, under control is central to PCOS. Because in what happens in PCOS, it's simple. It's as simple as this. When you start taking a glucose, a high intake of carbohydrates, pretty much all carbohydrates, whether it is complex or a simple carb, complex being say a roti or a potato or a chapati or rice, which I'm a South Indian too, so I love my rice. Now when you eat all of these complex, most of the complex carbs are converted into three major sugars: that's glucose, fructose, and galactose. You know, galactose is generally from milk, right? So these carbohydrates, when especially glucose, not very much fructose, so we need to be careful with fructose, but especially glucose. Whenever glucose goes up beyond a certain level in blood, the enter the easy number to remember is your fasting glucose, less than 100, 95, less than 100, right? So anything above that is a challenge. So after you eat, if your sugars go up to above 120 to 140, 150 and remains there, that means your body cannot handle that extra glucose that is not being compartmentalized or not being handled. Now, one of the major characters handling that is insulin. So insulin makes sure that whatever extra energy of carbohydrates that we eat, because glucose is toxic, the insulin will make sure that that glucose is tucked into somewhere, because we cannot just leave it around, because it is inflammatory especially to the internal linings of the arteries, and it is these which cause problem like hypertension. So when we have an imbalance like that, you have insulin coming and kicking in and trying to bring that glucose down, and it does it fantastically well. And that is actually, as good as it does, it becomes a problem because we don't see that happening. And so we keep pushing it and have our carbohydrates, and we do that, and we keep on doing that till insulin keeps on bringing it back. Insulin and the liver, they're doing a fantastic job, and they keep on bringing it down and managing it till it cannot handle it. And once it cannot handle it, you're going to see all the manifestations of hyperinsulinemia or insulin resistance. One of them is PCOS. So the question is, what causes PCOS is almost always insulin resistance.
Insulin resistance.
Right.
Absolutely. So I mean, yeah. So just to add up to it, now these insulin resistance is like having multiple workers in your house. Okay, so you have three workers, but then they don't work. Okay, so you can't really add more and more workforce, isn't it? So what you need to do is, okay, you have to sensitize them and then make them work. Okay, so now before our blood sugars go up, there is a phase wherein we have a state of hyperinsulinemia, which means that the insulin is already high in blood and trying really hard to push the glucose into the cells. At the cellular level, the insulin is not working.
Right.
So this excess insulin is what is actually creating the havoc, and then what Dr. Jeethan mentioned, the inflammation. So that is the major factor in PCOS again. Now, you mentioned about the cravings. Now, let me just fill in the cravings part. Now, cravings are whether you have a craving for coffee or chocolate or rice. The cravings are because you have a micronutrient deficiency. Now, when you're craving for a chocolate, okay, imagine you might be craving for magnesium or even manganese, which is present in the chocolate. So the body is asking for magnesium, but then you understand that there is a craving for chocolate. So what you need to do is you need to fix your magnesium deficiency. Okay, so then you will stop having craving for chocolates. So that is how you fix it, right?
Absolutely, doc. Absolutely. As well as the cravings can come from the gut flora. You was just talking about it some time back, an imbalance in the gut flora, and your happy critters asking you for more chocolate or ice cream. That becomes a challenge, as well as salt. Salt reduction in sodium in blood can actually manifest it's with cravings for a lot of people. So having a low salt diet is also a challenge. Of course, it goes against what we have been taught in medical school, and practice with most doctors. But I think salt is also becoming a problem.
Yeah. So yeah, so the salt these days is all what we understand by salt is sodium and chloride. But actually, salt is not just sodium and chloride. So all your refined salts, okay, which is like all the free flowing salts and the non-sticky salts and whatever is being used in marketing, they are all nonsense salts. It is when you say salt, it is a mix of sodium, potassium, chloride, and magnesium and manganese. That is what you get in all the sea salt, okay, which is the rock salt. That is the true salt and not the refined salt. So what you need to do is replace your refined salt with the rock salt or the sea salt, or you can even switch out to pink salt, which is much better, and then gives you wider micronutrient and mineral profile than your refined salt. Right. And another question about intermittent fasting. So Shraddha Dhar, okay, so she asks, how successful is the popular intermittent fasting practice in losing and maintaining the ideal weight? So we are basically skipping sections here. So we have a section anyway. So we'll take this as the last question before we proceed to the next section. Now, what is your view about intermittent fasting?
Right. You want to go for that?
Yeah.
I think, Doc, intermittent fasting is the way to eat. I mean, it's just become a kind of a point of conversation, and that it's become the buzzword intermittent fasting. But in reality, that's what we were doing many decades back. I mean, if you look at my great grandfather, my grandfather, as far as I remember, they had one solid meal in the morning and one solid meal in the evening. That's it. They didn't have chips, they didn't have bhajias, they didn't have anything during the day, maybe a cup of coffee. That's it. So that meal gap between meals has always been with us. It's just that this idiocy about eating meals throughout the day, having snacks throughout the day, and that you should keep on eating meals and in small portions throughout the day, has become a real pathological challenge. And the advice of taking these small meals throughout the day is what also keeps insulin happy, which doesn't make sense. So intermittent fasting, absolutely fantastic. Keeping the wide gaps between meals is what intermittent fasting is. So keeping a wider gap is even better than keeping small gaps. So intermittent fasting has many different variations. You can have the popular 18-6. So, when I tell my patients that I tell them it's 8 hours of feeding window. I don't tell them it's 16 hours of fasting window because it sounds a little more, unrealistic. So
Bigger.
then, yes, I say 8 hours of feeding window. But again, 8 hour of feeding window doesn't mean that you can shovel everything down your throat. No, it doesn't mean that. I think we should still have it under moderation. But keeping that 16-hour gap is basically keeping your insulin under control. That is the whole issue about the whole thing. And giving your body enough time to use that, giving your body enough time to go into a catabolic phase and not be in anabolism all the time. You see, what Doc was talking about when it comes to insulin resistance is insulin is a very important anabolic hormone. It is not a catabolic hormone. Anabolism means anything that you eat is going to be, something has to be done with that food, and that food will be tucked into for storage, that is fat converted into fat, and adipose tissue is a fantastic place to keep that, and or used and kept in tissue where energy is needed at that point in time, or for immediate use, like intermediate use. So this intermittent fasting basically keeps that gap wide, and so we're giving insulin its space and give it enough time to keep whatever you've eaten not in excess, to go into an anabolic, to stimulate the body into anabolic phase, tuck that extra food somewhere, as long as it's not too much, and use up the food for anabolism and energy available in other tissue. And then we should be going into catabolism. Catabolism is a phase where you're using up all the energy that has been stored and the excess energy that has been stored. So if you don't go into both of these equally, you're going to be in trouble, because if your anabolic phase is more than your catabolic phase, you're going to be in trouble. And this is what's happening. Correct, Doc? We're having more of this anabolic phase because we're eating all the time. I remember there's this beautiful experiment by Dr. Panda, one of my favorite scientists. So Dr. Panda is in Salk Institute and in the US. And what they did was they asked all the patients to take photographs of food that they eat. Doc, give me a second, of photographs of food that they eat. And they send the photographs of food. And one of the shocking things that came out was most people eat for almost 18 hours a day, 16 to 18 hours a day,
Absolutely.
which is ridiculous, which is killing us. And that's the problem, because we don't stop eating. And again, we're going to get into that probably later, which is a part of lifestyle again.
Yeah.
Right, Doc.
So, we start off with a 6 a.m. coffee or 5 a.m. coffee, and then we binge on Netflix series, and then we keep binging on either nuts or some chips while keeping our eyes busy, isn't it? We keep our mouths also busy. So anyway, just to
Absolutely.
add to that, now intermittent fasting is ingrained in our Indian culture. See, we have days like the Ekadashi, which is the 11th day of the lunar month, and Shashti, which is the 6th day of the lunar month. So they come twice in each cycle, which is like 4 days in a month. So wherein you can utilize those days not just for the health purpose, also your spiritual or whatever purpose, and then give up on your food, give up on your meals. Okay, not because you need to eat less. Okay, we understand the concept. So you are giving time for the body to recycle the old cells. See, as we eat and as we get subjected to the pollution of various sorts, our cells age. Now, if you keep on feeding it, okay, the old and senescent old cells are never recycled. The moment you fast for a longer period of time, the body has that stimulus to recycle the old ones, kill them, and then regenerate the new ones. So, in fact, you are stopping aging or even reversing aging by intermittent fasting. The concept of intermittent fasting is not to eat less, it is to help your body regenerate what we technically call as autophagy. Autophagy is eating yourself. Auto is phagy is eating yourself. So that is what happens. And also in maintaining lean body mass, intermittent fasting spikes up your growth hormone by 500%. Now, growth hormone is the main hormone which is necessary for building up of your lean body mass. So if you are not fasting, okay, you are not building up any kind of muscle. At least the natural boost that you get from simply staying away from food, you're missing out on that. So that is what the effect of intermittent fasting is. Right. So
Absolutely,
we'll
Doc. Just to add on
yeah,
that, thank you for bringing that up. That is so central, because everybody thinks that, oh, if I don't eat, I'm going to lose my
yeah,
muscle. You know,
yeah,
and that's a very, very common question that pops up very often. That if I don't eat, am I going to lose skeletal muscle? And that doesn't really happen, because in reality, or if you go back to about thousands or 10,000 or million years back, the only way to make you go and feed yourself is to keep you up and running. So you need to keep your muscles up and running. In fact, your muscles are very active when you're fasting, and you're very sharp, because your brain is making sure that you go and get some food. It's as
yes,
simple as that, and it's very important. I agree, absolutely, Doc.
yeah. Okay. So we'll discuss more when we come to the lifestyle section of our talk. So next, just moving on. I mean, now that we've understood what is the cause of obesity, now how do we fix it? Now, how do we fix it is a complex thing. Now, first thing is get a metabolic screening done. Go to a metabolic health expert. Okay, explain them that okay, you have X, Y, Z conditions, and you need a solution, and then no medicine. Yeah, the stress is no medicine. Okay, so I'll come to that. So now first thing is we need a complete history about you. Okay, so what you have suffering currently, what is your what is the condition that you suffered in the past, what are the treatments that you are on, and what about your family history? I mean, does your mom and dad have heart disease and hypertension or diabetes or obesity? Now, if you have a family history, you are already at risk, which means even if you are healthy today, then you if you have a family history, any day you are at a higher risk of developing all those metabolic conditions. So this is the importance of history. Now the doctor will proceed to perform a focused examination, and there is a metabolic screening panel. Now what most doctors miss out these days is, see, you're mostly prescribed fasting glucose as a test, but most doctors miss out on fasting insulin and HbA1c. If you measure fasting insulin and glucose together, we get a score called HOMA IR. Now, this HOMA IR score tells us how much of insulin resistance you have already. And it is both a diagnostic score and a prognostic score. Let's say you start off today with a score of 5, and we prescribe nutrition or put you on an exercise program. So the 5 has to go down to 4 and 3. Okay, so it is both prognostic as well. So this is what tells you in the metabolic health panel. So we also screen you for systemic inflammation. Now, what is this inflammation? So why are we getting so many heart disease and cancers in apparently healthy people? They even say, I don't eat non-veg, but I'm still having cancer, right? But your vegetarian food is not necessary that it is healthy, right? So you have chronic long-term low-grade inflammation, and that is one of the reasons for cancer. And the diagnostic testing not only tells you that, but it also tells you about your micronutrient deficiencies. So in the last 5 years of running the MediFit Clinic, each participant is low on vitamin D, magnesium, vitamin B12, and iron. Now, iron is mostly low in women, but there are men also who have iron deficiency, severe iron deficiency. Now, why is this happening? See, you are apparently eating healthy food, right? I mean, might be following a healthy lifestyle. Then why is it happening, right? There are a lot of other things. So this is what you need to start your journey with. So understanding your current status of health is important, and that is your ground zero. Whatever happens in future is a comparison to your ground zero. Right. So to add it to that, so we serially monitor your body composition, and whatever tests are abnormal, so that needs to be repeated at least 4 to 6 weekly intervals. So, Doc, how often do you repeat your diagnostics?
At least about once in 6 months, Doc. In some patients, maybe a little shorter because they're very anxious, but it makes sense to have them done once in 6 months because things don't change that much.
Mhm.
But sometimes if you're looking at things like I also want to mention uric acid. Uric acid is coming up as one of the metabolic markers for
Yeah.
as a
Mhm.
challenge because uric acid, yeah, doc, uric acid is a metabolic signal for putting on fat. There's a reason for that, and probably we can talk about it some other time in another webcast, right, doc? So yes, I about 6 months, doc, generally.
All right. Okay. So we have a slightly rigorous protocol with us because we completely rely on the data. Now, I mean, one more reason why we put you through so much of diagnostics is that, like, let's say you have an iron deficiency anemia, which means the blood, the oxygen carrying capacity of your blood is already less. And then you rush to the gym to perform endless exercise on treadmills to lose weight. You are only killing yourself. You are doing more harm to yourself than good. So know where you stand as of today before you decide on what you need to do further. And then it is not you that decides, but it is the doctor who needs to decide, okay, what intervention, what nutrition needs to be prescribed, okay, and what exercise has to be prescribed, what lifestyle modifications have to be prescribed. So with the upcoming trend of ketogenic diet is not for everybody, isn't it?
Right, doc. I mean, we need to be we need to be careful with that. And again, there are a lot of debates about whether we should continue ketogenic diets throughout our lives. And I really think that cyclic uh, uh, changes of, even if you go into a fat-based diet, you can go back into not a normal carbohydrate-based diet, but generally a little bit of more carbs than required, because we need to go with how the nature has intended us to have our foods. Just one point about you mentioned Mr. Magnesium, which is one of the most prevalent micronutrients, the hypomagnesemia I'm talking about. I'm not, what Doc and I are talking about in general are not deficiency really, because by the time you pick up deficiency, you're already in trouble. So we also look at clinical signs and food habits. That's why when Doc mentioned that taking a history of food is very important, because if someone, let me give an example. If someone is not taking the foods that are good in magnesium, or even if it is not, even if it is good in magnesium, one of the challenges that I think all of us will agree, is that our soils are becoming deficient of many of the micronutrients. So if you go online, or if someone tells you, oh no, you know what, if you eat spinach, there is palak, you're going to get your magnesium, right? I mean, that's what top people normally say, but I don't believe that the food, I cook a lot, I love to cook, so I don't believe that the food that palak that I get has all the magnesium and other minerals that it's supposed to give. But my textbook says it. Fine, I'm good, I understand. But that if that magnesium in Mumbai, all the palaks come from the train tracks, people grow them there. What nutrients is that going to have? So we need to be cork sure, if you're going the nutritional route of getting all the micronutrient deficiencies that we're having. You need to be really cork sure, which is very difficult. So micronutrients replenishing, that the supplements becomes an important part, and especially when it comes to magnesium, because that's a very important one of the central micronutrients like iron, which is important for muscle. Magnesium and muscle goes very well, because magnesium and calcium are basically important for a calcium magnesium pump in the body, and magnesium is very central. And one of the things that we need to remember is that blood levels do give you an inclination, but as doctors, we see the clinical signs of things. That is the difference. Okay, so there are times when magnesium, which your blood levels of magnesium typically reflect about 1% of magnesium in the body. So we may not really be able to pick it up sometimes in your blood reports, but then we throw in our clinical what do you say, prowess, and we would say, okay, highly likely you are magnesium because your foods do not contain that. You're not taking micro supplements, any supplements, so you need to take some magnesium and more magnesium. Again, of course, depending on how good your gut is when it comes to absorbing all those micronutrients. Right.
Absolutely, completely agree. Now, when it comes to weight loss, now 70% of your intervention is nutrition. So you really do not have to enter the gym to lose weight. You can simply melt like butter sitting in your own home, just if you know what to eat and when to eat. Having said that, so that is one of the prime assessments that is done. Now, how does your plate look like, and when do you eat, and what are your food choices, and what are the proportions of your macronutrients, and how how much of micronutrients are entering your diet. Now these are the things that is going into the nutrition assessment. So in short, what you eat is as important as when you eat, is as important as how you eat. So mindful eating habits are very, very important. Before we get into the nitty gritties of these things, so I would like to mention same thing. Okay, what you eat, when you eat, and how you eat are equally important. If the calorie counters are giving you the wrong information, that if you are eating your designated number of calories at any time in the day, but you don't exceed the calories, you will not gain weight, which is absolute nonsense. You don't, we have not really counted calories for millions of years, but we still have been healthy. We have, the obesity pandemic has started in the year 1970, after the guidelines have been tweaked, after the carbs became more important and the fat became less important. Fat became the reason for obesity, which is again the wrong thing. Fat is not the reason for your problem, right? The wrong proportions are your problem. Okay, so coming to what you eat. Now what you eat is, look at your plate, divided by 4, and one half of it will should be filled with vegetables and fruits, and one quarter of it should be filled with your cereals and pulses, and the other quarter of it should be filled with animal source protein. Now if you can ask me, do pulses do not contain proteins? Yes, they do contain proteins, but the thing is, it is half truth. Doc, I've always had patients ask me, I get my proteins from dals. Is it not enough?
Mm.
So
Right.
I'm just silent. I wait for them to complete.
Right.
They just wonder and then they ask, what are you waiting for? I'm waiting to complete the sentence. So dals contain, the truth is that dals contain more protein, yes, as compared to the cereals like rice. That's it. And it is not an A class protein, it is a B class protein, and definitely a no match for the animal source protein, isn't it?
Absolutely, doc, and exactly what happens to me as well. You know, if when you ask your patients, "Are you eating protein?" Because now I'm in Mumbai, so in my half-broken Hindi, I'll ask, "आप protein खाते हैं?" And they'll say, "हाँ, खाता हूँ." लेकिन then I'll say, "Okay, कितना क्या खाते हैं? दाल खाते हैं." So, okay, how is your dal? How much do you eat? One wati, fine. Is it thick? No, 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 thin, doc. I said, okay, fine. So, how much protein do you think it has? You see, so our dialogue has to change as question should be like, not are you eating protein, but the question should be how much protein are you eating, one part of it, right? And then you have to understand exactly your point. You see, carbohydrates, when it comes to people say, oh, dal mein good protein here. I said, fine, let's take a piece of chicken. And we're not propagating that this should be a non-vegetarian thing or not, but we should understand our food. So for the debate point of view, let's take 100 grams of chicken. It's a small piece. That'll give you about 24 to 25, depending which part of the chicken it is. But let's keep it at 25 grams for in 100 grams of chicken. We take 100 grams of dal. That'll give you approximate tur dal will give about approximately 24 to 25 grams of protein. So pretty much equivalent in terms of protein intake. But 100 grams of chicken is this big. 100 grams of dal, when you cook it, becomes that big, half a vessel full. So my question to my patients is, do you eat half a vessel full of dal? And they say, are you nuts? I said, exactly. You see, that doesn't happen. So the point is how much protein are you taking? And that comes again carbohydrate laden. So if you have a weight problem and eating a dal and rice, you're getting a double impact from the dal, which has carbs, and then your rice, which has about 6 to 8%, depending, or maybe 9%, depending on the type of cereal that you're eating. And that gives you a lot of carbs again. And you're getting a double impact from the dal and the rice, and your weight is not going anywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. So your dals are good, but not enough. So that is the message that you need to take. And so coming to when you eat, now we had this question of should I eat frequent meals in a day? So the gym trainers these days and many other nutritionists have seen a lot of diet charts. So every 3 hours is a meal. So my question is, how do you even digest it in 3 hours? Even a simple meal takes about minimum of 4 hours or even at least 6 hours to get digested. So our breakfast should be only as small as what takes us till lunch. And lunch should be the largest meal of our day, which means 50% of uh, the total energy intake should be at lunch. But what are we doing? We are mostly eating a huge dinner, wherein, according to our biological clock, the system is already shut, isn't it? As the sun goes down, we need to stop eating. But after the sun goes down is when we are actually eating the largest meal of the day. So how are we going to get metabolically healthy?
Absolutely, Doc. Absolutely. And most of the parties start at 10 o'clock at night. So we're in trouble, right? But that is really true, because the when melatonin is supposed to kick in, when we don't have light in the on the retina, which is supposed to be just post sunset, which is what we are designed for, which doesn't happen today because our lights are on till 1 or 2 o'clock at night. Either we are watching our TVs or we have the LED lights on, we have our tablets or the telephones on, and our brain thinks that it is still daylight, because a telephone will give you something like an 8K, this 8 kelvins to 10 kelvins temperature, light temperature. A bright blue day or a bright blue afternoon gives you about 12 to 13K temperature, light temperature. So your brain still thinks that it is evening. And then you try to sleep and the brain goes like, why do you want to sleep? It's still afternoon or late evening. So I'm seeing the 8K light come in. So what is your hurry to sleep? And then your digestion goes out of whack because you don't get melatonin, which is supposed to be secreted around 7 or 8 o'clock. And there's a crossover when your cortisol starts coming in. That doesn't happen. Our digestion is totally pushed to 10 o'clock because you're watching some soap opera on TV or something very interesting. And the ads in between these serials are so good that you will reach out for a meal, because it is some popular character telling you ye khao, wo khao, and nice biryani, which shows you smoking hot biryani with whatever in there, and it looks so mouth-watering that you will reach out for food. And that's the only time when the advertiser can sell their stuff, right? But this is killing us. So what I always tell my patients is we are an old engine, which is like millions of years old, with our new environment, which is not matching. And we need to understand that, because you eat a meal at night and you go to sleep, where is that food going to be digested?
Absolutely.
No activity.
Yeah. So on an average, I mean, we at least, see, this is how we divide the meals in our program. So we set a 8 to 10 hour of eating window. So 25%, 50%, and another 25% breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So that's how it is set. And that 25% of the inner calories are set at least 3 hours prior to their sleep, so that it is digested well before they sleep, and then there is no accumulation of toxins, isn't it? Even the great Ayurveda tells, the moment there is undigested food in your system when you sleep, okay, results in accumulation of something known as ama, which is like the toxins, and that is the cause of many diseases, and it affects you through your lymph, isn't it? So eat 3 hours prior, and it should be a very, very small meal or a light meal. If you want to eat meat or anything, okay, have it during lunch, and best would be breakfast. So if it is not possible, lunch, but no heavy foods at night. So that is something is very important. And practice mindful eating. Now, mindful eating is throw away your phones, switch off your televisions, sit in a circle on the floor with your family, and then eat your dinner. At least one meal in a day. Make it social. Okay, when we say social, it is not your external world, your internal world is your family. So make time to connect with them and then relish the food, and that is when it will chew the food. Now half the digestive enzymes are in our mouth, in the saliva, so we just gulp it or we just swallow it, and then we are always on the run. So one meal in a day, make it a ritual, and then practice mindful eating habits. So that is the mantra that we tell you. So let's quickly take some questions about nutrition in obesity, shall we?
Sure, doc.
Oh, this is a long session. Okay, so we usually finish by 1 hour. We're already 10 minutes past, and then we still have the exercise and then the lifestyle sections.
Oh, we can do another one, doc, some other time.
Yeah, absolutely. Then
And you're an exercise specialist, so that will be fantastic for people to actually listen to you on
yes,
that.
yes. So we'll quickly take one question asked by Rashmi. So she asked, how to manage food intake while we fast? Will a total fasting by not eating anything at all affect the health? Right. So do you want to take this?
Yes, doc, I would love to take that because when I ask my patients, "Are you fasting?" They say, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, great. So you're not going to eat anything?" He said, "No. I'm eating something. I'm eating fruit." And I go like, "Okay." Or I'm eating sabudana, which is also popular as well. And I go, no, that is not a fast. That is a sabudana fast, or that is a khichdi fast, or that is a fruit fast. It's very different from fasting. In my in my humble opinion, fasting is not eating anything. Water.
Just water.
That's it. Just water. Absolutely. Don't eat anything. You're not, people are not going to drop by 6 hours to 8 hours. We have enough body fat which is going to keep us going, but we need to access that fat. That's another dialogue altogether, and how to access
Yes.
that fat. But we're not, nothing is going to happen to us. People go crazy, berserk by going, "Oh, I have not eaten anything." And I go like, "Yeah, so what? You're not going to die." I don't mean that, but the point is, we need to absolutely eat nothing, and that is a true fast. Water, if you really want, some people, if the gap between food, the foods that you've taken, like a first meal of the day, I've stopped using the words breakfast, lunch, and dinner, doc, as much as I can. I call it the first, second, and third. Sounds very boring, but I prefer that in many of my conversations. So with the meal, the gap between the first meal and the second meal, if it is wide and if eating 2 meals a day, for example, at say 9 o'clock in the morning, and the one say 8 hours after, whatever you want, however you want to spread it, the most of the headaches that people get, doc, and I think you'll agree with me, most of the people that headaches that people get is not hypoglycemia, it is hyponatremia. You're running low on salt. So
Yes.
some people, it helps taking lime juice with salt, as long as
Yes.
you don't have acidity or something. It does help. So yeah, doc, fasting is nothing. And
Yeah.
it's not going to hurt you. In fact, it's, as doc mentioned, benefits that will fill up every page in your book.
One of the main concerns or even complaints that people come to us with is I have a gastric upset and my gastritis increases with fasting, which
Mm.
is absolutely not true. In fact, it gives your gut a good rest and it relieves your acidity problems or gastroesophageal reflux problems, and it relieves your acidity. So as you rightly mentioned, now the headaches are because of low sodium. So sipping lemon water just with salt and not sugar, I mean especially with rock salt and not the refined salt, okay, it is going to take you from, even if you are able to simply fast 6 hours, it is definitely, it will help you fast till at least 12 hours to begin with, and then it is a must try. Now we used to have this ritual of fasting every Monday as a group. So this is something we've begun. We used to have a MediFit fasting group, so wherein people who are already fasting, they used to post how wonderful they are feeling, so that people get motivated, and then this is something that we used to do earlier.
I think it's a brilliant idea, Doc. I think it's a brilliant idea. See, I mean, let me give you an example of my family. My wife and daughter will eat generally one meal a day.
Oh,
Not on, I don't, I'm not talking, I'm not giving them any gyan or anything. They probably hear me talking about it. And me, many of the times I do eat one meal a day. I'm not a breakfast person kind of thing. And so I think one of the take home messages should be, if you're not hungry, don't eat. Just
yeah.
don't eat just because it's time to eat. Because people go, oh, it's 9 o'clock, breakfast cut time. Oh, it's 2 o'clock, I gotta eat. It's 2 o'clock, and oh, it's 6 o'clock, I gotta have something. Oh, and your mother will say, oh, come home, it's 8 o'clock, it's time to eat. And so we go by the clock, which we have been doing. We are just going downhill because that is so terrible, and because it's not at all biologically relevant. The
Yes.
time on your watch is
Yeah.
not. It's your food, your body is going to tell you when you want to eat. And I think we should be mindful of the changes. I'm not saying tomorrow everything is going to change. When you make those changes, it does take time. And I think having 1 day fasting a week is brilliant, Doc.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right. So we'll quickly wrap it up with, I mean, your point of view about the role of stress and the importance of sleep in obesity. Now, the second stage, I mean, after we assess the metabolic health and the nutrition, the next thing that we assess as a part of the program is the lifestyle. Now, how stressed are you? And what is, I mean, how good is your sleep? And what about your habits? I mean, do you smoke and do you consume alcohol, or do you even abuse drugs? So these are very, very vital factors. So what he says, 70% nutrition, 20% lifestyle, and only 10% is exercise. So that's why I'm keeping the exercise to the end. Although the mainstream media tells you exercise to lose weight, which is like absolute nonsense. So let's start off with stress.
Right, Doc. I think stress is a big one. But I think a lot of times, if I may say this, a lot of times people blame their stress on everything. You know, like, oh, I'm stressed. I said, like, so why should you eat? Because you're stressed, right? So stress is important. I think stress is a huge problem that we do face, and continuous stress is definitely not good because your catecholamines, your cortisols are just going to be high all the time. Um, a simple thing that people normally do is like, even one thing I don't appreciate is playing games at night. I think playing computer games are fine. I don't, but I don't say that is wrong or right. But your adrenaline is always high because you're just trying to get a score, and you're just up and running and you're so worked up. How are you going to manage to get sleep after that? First of all, you get this blue light coming into your eyes like crazy, and you get bright and blue lights coming in, and then you're hyped up. You're not going to get sleep. Second one, and stress is something that we have to learn to manage. And I think a lot of times, even things like meditation helps. Yes, unwinding helps. Keeping gaps between activities help. That helps a lot. Or like me, have a pet dog. I have 4 dogs, but have a pet dog. These things help. And you rightly said sleep is important. I think that is one of the central things, Doc. Another elephant in the room: insulin resistance and sleep. Sleep deprivation is a big problem, and we have to understand the difference between general insomnia, which is defined as at least 3 months of inability to sleep, even if you have enough time to sleep. Whereas sleep deprivation is you don't have time to sleep. Like, you wake up at 6 because you got to be at work at 8:30 or 9 o'clock. You live in a city like Mumbai, and then you leave work around 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, even though your clock says 5:30 you're supposed to leave work because that's what your contract says. But if you leave work at 5:30, people say, what's the hurry? Finish your work, right? So you leave at 8 o'clock, and then by the time you get home, it's 10 o'clock. So, and the time you eat dinner, it's about 10:30, 11 o'clock, and 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock you sleep. 5 o'clock you wake up, or even less than that.
Yeah.
4 to 5 hours of sleep, you end up with sleep deprivation. Your hormones are totally imbalanced. Your cortisol is off, and you get up stressed because you're already in a stress mode by that time. You don't get enough sleep. There is no repair. Repair happens asleep, during sleep.
Yes.
And if you look at it, just give me another few minutes. If you look at it, sleep. I mean, through millions of years of us being on the planet, and so are other creatures on this planet, one thing that has not changed is our sleep time. We have to notice that. And if you look at us as a species, sleep is a time when which is dangerous, because sleep is a time when you can get attacked and killed and eaten or whatever. We are vulnerable during sleep, but we have still not compromised on our sleep time, because that is crucial to our and central to our being. It is a time when we get repair. It is a time when you'd agree muscle growth is one of the best at its best. And your brain repair happens, your tissue repair happens, your immune system gets better. In fact, it's a lot more active than during the day, and so many things. So sleep is hurting us a lot. The sleep deprivation, rather.
Yeah.
Right.
Just to add up to that, I mean, the reason why most of us eat when we are stressed is because it makes us feel good. Now, when we say makes us feel good, it releases a chemical called dopamine. Now we eat anything that makes us release that particular chemical, and then that is the reason why we are addicted so much to the junk. The junk, as in the carbohydrates, especially the refined variety of it, like the chips and the French fries and the chocolates. Okay, so they release your dopamine, so they temporarily give you a high, okay, which you don't realize because you're already in a low. That high takes you to neutral or maybe something a little lighter than that. That is why we eat. Uh, and it also increases your need for micronutrients, especially the see, it's a vicious cycle. Stress increases your need for magnesium, and low magnesium increases your stress. So how you break it is you supplement magnesium and then break that cycle, right? So that is how we need to combat stress. And the most important thing about stress is you are halfway victorious when you identify your cause of stress, and 70% of your territory is conquered when you identify your coping mechanism. Just the another 20%, 25% is that you need to implement that coping mechanism and then seek support. And it is no shame to tell everybody is stressed these days. It is absolutely no shame because of our lifestyles and the pressures of the society. So speak out to people and combat and then look at your coping mechanisms. That is about stress. Now, like Dr. Jeethan mentioned, now when we don't sleep, our brain contains something like, I mean, it is called the glymphatic system. Now, that is what takes away all the debris from that is accumulated throughout the day. Unless that debris is not taken away during the deep phase of sleep, so we are not recovering at all. So that is why we need to have at least a good quality of sleep. Now, quality over quantity here. If you are able to get a good sleep for 6 hours and then you practice something like yoga and meditation and then you're able to do well, good. But we need to assess your recovery objectively by measuring your heart rate variability before we tell you, look, 6 hours is enough for you. So when you lose weight, when you are sleep deprived, you are losing only muscle and not fat. So you might be losing weight, but then you're losing only muscle, and then you are actually adding fat. So that is how important sleep is. Right. So coming to the last is the fitness assessment. Okay, see, exercise plays a very, very important role and it cannot be really ignored, but then it is not the most important thing. Now, initially, look, a person having a normal metabolism will benefit hugely from exercise. And but if a person having an abnormal metabolism, like metabolic dysfunction, like what we are talking about, first step is to normalize the metabolism. I mean, come from -5 to 0 and then take it up from 0 to +5. And exercise is not the first thing that does that, right? So focus on nutrition, focus on lifestyle. Okay, then look at exercise. So in the fitness assessment, we usually do endurance and strength and flexibility testing, based on which you will be prescribed exercise. And in the weight loss journey, Doc, what is your impression about goal setting? Now, people come to me with, I need to lose 10 kgs in like 3 months. So what is your point of view?
Possible, but challenging in most times. I don't usually encourage that unless someone is really well balanced in the food habits and work and everything. Um, but you can do it. I'm not saying you cannot. Uh, Sometimes some of my patients are able to lose a kg a week.
Yeah.
Possible. It's possible. I mean, definitely not a challenge. It's possible with me, not a challenge. But I do a lot of fasting as well. So if I want to lose some weight, fasting is the way I kickstart my weight loss or weight management program in case I put on weight. And that happens, and everybody does indulge in certain things. But yeah, short 3 months is actually very feasible for 10 kg goal, doc. Absolutely not a problem
Yeah.
at all. But yeah, it has to be the messages have to go right. And just a point about your mention about exercise. If my patients tell me, oh, I put on weight, doc, I didn't exercise last week. I said, but that exercises, it's very common, right? Exercise model, weight just right? And it is not. So if you have to exercise to lose weight, then you're having the wrong nutrition program.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Right.
I mean, that is what even Professor Tim Noakes says.
Yeah.
He says, if you need to exercise to maintain your weight, then that means your diet is absolutely wrong. And he is one of the pioneers of the low carbohydrate diet in the world. He's an A1 rated researcher, and then we've all been reading, his research papers and then taking a lot from it. So, one thing I would like to say here is like set smart goals. Now, smart goals is what? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound goals. So, only if your goals are smart, you are going to achieve them. So, have a short term goal, have an intermediate goal, and have a long term goal, and um, keep achieving it. And then, most importantly, what is realistic? Now, if you lose 10% of your existing body weight in the next 6 months and keep it off, that itself is a huge achievement in itself. Why? Because there is a gland called hypothalamus in our brain, which is a weight set point. Now, it will not help you lose more because it says, look, I sense some trouble, and then it stalls the weight loss. And it is not that the program is not working, you are doing something wrong, or you are falling off the bandwagon. It is how the body is designed, it is how the physiology is designed. That is why you hit something known as a plateau. When you hit a plateau, keep it going. Okay, the weight loss is never linear like this. Okay? It is always like this. It is always like this, and that is how it will be, and that is how it should be. Right. So, uh, Dr. Jeethan, do you have any final takeaway for our viewers? I mean, they've been around for our last 1.5 hours, and then I believe it is a long time on a Sunday morning.
A Sunday well spent, I guess, Doc. But I think the most important thing is, of course, getting your, as you said, getting your goal right realistically, and then working towards that, getting the right practitioner, getting the right mindset, making a lot of times initially I used to, kind of tell people, yeah, you lose weight, not a problem. But I nowadays insist on people giving me so why do you want to lose weight? What is the reason? How well have you made up your mind? Because you can get all the gyan in the world, and I can give you all the advice in the world that, we read so much and we get to all these points, and we tell you all that, but or advice, or even for me, but you have to make that up in your mind. I will get healthy. Weight is a part of it. The point is, weight loss is an end point, but the actual end point for me is health and, of course, aging, right.
Yeah.
So we need to look at that. That is the goal. So when some people don't lose weight, I say, I mean, you're doing well. Your metabolic parameters are getting so much better. And like you said, weight loss is never linear like that. I mean, never like a slope that goes down that way. You're going to have bumps on the way. The seasonal changes will bring food changes that you're going to eat, right? And we should be eating seasonally, generally speaking. And so these are going to be different, but as long as you have a goal and they're realistic, talk to your advisor, be on it all the time. Try to keep your focus on. Yeah, it's easy to you follow the track, get back on. Don't try to be off the track for very long. It is very achievable. very achievable, I think, Doc. And I think we should just be very encouraging as practitioners and as people who go through the same thing. It's not like, I'm immune to challenges of weight or metabolic challenges. No, I mean, I have the same blood flowing as everybody else. So we also have that challenge, and we face it every day. We face our stresses, we face our monsters, we face our challenges like everybody else. And but at the end of the day, I think we need to keep a focus going, and a belief in ourselves that we can do it, and we certainly can do it.
Yeah.
Doc.
So I'll just summarize what you said in just one sentence. See, it's basically you get healthy to lose weight, and you do not lose weight to get healthy. Weight loss is just a side effect of your journey from illness to wellness. The moment your body has a normal metabolism and you shift from illness to wellness, your body automatically loses weight, and then you come down to a healthy range of weight. See, there is no one particular number wherein uh, you will come and reach. There is always a range, right? So healthy weight range within good amount of musculature and the low visceral fat and a decent amount of we'll come to the ranges in some other lecture. Okay, so what is a good range of body fat and what is a good range of muscle? So that is where you reach. So weight loss is just a side effect of getting healthy. Now we missed out on two questions, doc. So one of the question is, in menopausal women with hyperthyroidism, it is very difficult to reduce weight. This comes from Mrunal Patak. I think, Mrunal, there is a typographical error here. Hyperthyroidism patients are already underweight because of the high metabolism. I'm assuming that this is a hypothyroidism. So people with hypothyroidism are uh, at risk of weight gain. Yeah, but the main problem here, hypothyroidism, is not the primary problem. The primary problem is an increase in estrogen. Now, estrogen is high and it suppresses the thyroid, and then that is where hypothyroidism happens. If your doctor is only fixing your thyroid by giving you the thyroid hormones, the root cause is never addressed. So the aim should be to fix your hyperestrogenemia or high estrogen, and automatically the hypothyroidism gets reversed. So I hope I have answered your question. So the last question for the day. Okay, so do your programs educate us about stress management? Our programs are built on the principle of learn, practice, and preach. See, we teach you a lot of things. We handhold you while you practice, and then when you're happy, you tell others. Yes, but what happens is, if you have not identified your cause of stress and coping mechanisms, we will have to bring in a counselor in place, and that significantly increases the cost of the program. So yeah, so the lifestyle medicine doctor, yes, they do address your stress management and they help you with it. Yes, otherwise we will have to bring in a counselor. I hope I answered your question. So if there are any questions, okay, we'll just take 1 minute and then answer them. All right, Doc. My personal thank you to you for spending so much time on a Sunday. Okay, I really appreciate it, and thank you so much. So we look forward to interacting more, and we will end this session, and I will send you a brief of this recording. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
So
pleasure.
no questions. Okay, so we'll end the session for today. Thank you. Thank you to all those who have joined. Thank you. We really appreciate it.